Sure. I'd like to welcome everybody here today at Studio 36. I have a distinguished guest, young man, Mr. George Kramer, who is the author of we're 4 books going into, I believe it's number 5, on the Arcadis Series. George, a little bit of basic information. He is from Brooklyn, New York, and I got to tell you, I loved New York. I spent time up in Schenectady, loved it up there. Now, you're currently living in McCordsville, Indiana, is that correct?
Yes, I am.
Okay, perfect. And I also understand that you're working on a book number 5, and some of these books have your daughter involved with.
Oh, yes. Well, I finished book 5 for Arcadis. I'm working on 6.
Oh, okay.
But I have 2 books. Yeah. I have 2 books based on conversations I've had with my daughter, Karis. I just never know what she's going to say.
That's awesome.
What I like to do is I like to write them on Facebook, compile them, and then publish them as an ebook.
Oh, excellent. I guess, who's George? Tell me a little bit about you, George, about what you've done, a little bit about your life, your family, if you don't mind.
Sure. Like you said, I was born in Brooklyn. I was raised on Long Island. I'm one of 9 kids. I'm a natural-born triplet.
Cool.
And I moved to Indiana in 1989, and several family members have moved here since then. So in 5th grade, I was listening to a teacher read Treasure Island with a pirate accent, and I started doodling, and I think that was the beginning of my writing.
Wow.
Because my mind wandered, so I just figured I'd start writing.
That is so cool. And a lot of young writers, that's their inspiration is from their school, from their teachers. So that's actually really cool. What got you kind of explained about what got you into the writing. It's just from your peers and seeing what they and listening and then imagining. Are you with any support groups, writing support groups?
I know a lot of writers through the book signings I go to.
Okay.
I do belong to one, but it's on a Monday night in Indianapolis in the evening, and I live in McCordsville. By the time I pick my daughter up, it's too late to go to the meeting. Mm-hmm. But I'm friends with most of them on there.
Okay.
If there was a support group closer to McCordsville, if I knew about any, I would certainly join. But I've had people come to me through Facebook asking me for advice. I've had people at work, some of them want to start writing. Mm-hmm. They don't know how to do it. I give them advice on I because I learned everything myself.
Right. And I think that's...
I like to...
Yeah, I was going to say, I think that's important, because when they can see what you're doing, it gives them that, that encouragement to go, you know what, I can do this too.
Exactly. I like to let them know my way, and then they can either follow or at least have a basis for what they can do for themselves.
Right.
So yeah, I really enjoy doing that.
That's awesome. Now, these books are science fiction or just fiction?
They are science fantasy.
Oh, fantasy.
And
okay.
Yeah, I differentiate science fantasy and science fiction. Science fiction is like, if you're going to talk about time travel, you're going to have some sort of basis to know what you're talking about.
Right.
But with science fiction, you can talk about purple dragons and it's okay. So that's more my creative area, is where you make stuff up.
Mm-hmm.
And as long as it makes sense in the storyline, you're fine.
Right. I always tease these guys here. I've often wanted to sit down and write my own book, and I discovered that my life is too messed up. So it wouldn't be a good book. George, when you... I'm sorry?
I was going to say, truth is stranger than fiction.
Yeah. Your first publication. Tell us about that. What was your feelings on that?
The first Arcadis book?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, it was wonderful. I received such support. It was a tough learning process because you got to find someone that will make the cover for you. You got to find someone, if you don't know how to draw, you have to find someone that will format it for you if you don't know how to format it for publication. But it was all worth it because of the generous feedback I received from my book.
Right.
And subsequently all the other books, yes.
But now that helps you become a better writer, though, because if I'm not mistaken, because that feedback tells you more or less the do's, the don'ts, the likes, the dislikes.
Yes, yes. It's a YA market for me. It's young adult, and a couple of the women said they want more fluff in it, and I was like, but I want it for the YA market, so I'm not going to put a lot of fluff in it. It's action adventure. It's for 11 and older, and I received fan mail. I received the email from parents that have bought their son and daughter books and how much they enjoyed it. That is what keeps me writing.
Yes.
The fact that people read it and really like it.
Yes, I was looking at some of the responses that people had left there, and yeah, I applaud you for sure that it seems like it's captioning the children's minds in a better way, without all the violence and the stuff that's out there now. And I know I appreciate that. Got another question.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I was just going to say, what I thought was, I would rather have kids read the books, the Arcadis books, get absorbed versus watching TV or playing video games.
Thank you. Yes. And I'm a firm believer in that. And luckily, I have two children who, well, they were still in the mom's womb. We read to continuously, all the time read to them. And even now, my boys would rather read than, play a lot of video games or watch a lot of TVs. I'd rather pick up a good book. And I think that's one of the things that we lose in society these days is we don't have enough kids reading books. And we have too many of them playing video games. But I think if they read your books, they'd put those video games down for sure.
Yeah, and since you said that about you read to your wife's belly, I not only did I do that, I also put headphones on my wife's belly and played classical music.
Okay, so I was not the only one.
No.
Yep.
No.
Yep, we played classical music, soft country. We would sing to the children, and it was always funny because we won't go into too much detail, but when you put the headphones on the belly, it's kind of funny to watch the belly migrate to the headphone. But
Yep.
yeah, I just think that's if any parent should do that. Lay your head on the baby and talk to the baby. We could go into this forever, but yeah, yep. So I'm glad to know that I was not the only other insane person that did that.
Yep.
Yeah. So I've heard a lot about your daughters, and I forgive me if I don't say this right. Is it Musings? That 2-book collection.
Sorry, can you repeat the question?
That we've been hearing a lot about your daughters, and forgive me if I say this word wrong. Musings.
Yes.
Okay.
My daughter and her musings. Yeah.
Musings.
Yeah.
Okay. There we go. I apologize for that. Can you share a little bit with us?
Well, when she was 5, she's always been different in a good way. She always saw things from a different perspective. For example, she was 7, and I was in the garage waiting with her on a bus stop. And I had her later in life. I was 43. My wife was 33. And she's 10 now. And this was 3 years ago, and she goes, Daddy, most of all my friends have daddies in their 20s and 30s, and you're 50. You're kind of old. I'm like, yeah, I know. What do you think about that? She goes, well, it's okay, but you're going to die before the other daddies. I mean, there was no filter.
Well.
No filter. As another one, for example, a couple months ago, I go to bed before my wife and daughter decided to get up earlier. Well, it was dark in my room. My daughter comes in. I could tell it was her. She leans down. I thought she was going to kiss me on the cheek, but she whispers in my ear, "Daddy, I don't understand life," and walks out. I mean, these are the conversations. Well, I have longer conversations with her,
Wow.
but these are the types of things I have to deal with.
Well, you're doing a phenomenal job, obviously. Yeah. My kids' biggest thing, they'd look at me and go, "Dad, you forgot to feed me today." So but that's amazing. Now, you did say that you finished book 6, or you're on book 6?
On book 6, I just, on Facebook, Saturday, I put a brief paragraph on it because people ask me when book 5 is coming out. It'll be next year.
Okay.
But I just gave a little bit of book 6 just to entice people.
Okay. Now, speaking of enticing, can you give us a little synopsis of the upcoming, or the plot on book 5? It looks like he has down here as one of my questions. The plot line on book 5.
Yes, book 5 is where Arcadis is trapped, and he has to find a way out, and he also has to go through a test. He has to do something for a very bad person, and he has to do it. So he has to go through, there's 16 known realms in my book, and he has to go outside of that known realm to find a fossil for this guy, for this terrible being. And if he gets the fossil, he has to give it to him, and the deal he struck is null and void. So what he finds out is he has to go through these trials and tribulations to get this fossil for this person. And in the course of that, he finds out a lot of stuff about himself.
Awesome.
My books deal with sorcerers that are magical with colors. So for people that have never heard of Arcadis, or like, I'd like to give a brief synopsis of the first book, if I may.
Yes, please do. Please do.
In the beginning of the sorcerer world, there was 3 primary colors: red, blue, and yellow. And that's true in the universe. There's 3 primary colors: red, blue, and yellow. Before Lord Quill took over, it was mandated you had to marry your own color. So a red-powered sorcerer had to marry red, a blue had to marry blue, and a yellow had to marry a yellow sorcerer.
Okay.
When Lord Quill took over, he said you can't marry your own color, and some people fled to keep the bloodline. He took a couple families to keep the bloodlines pure, but when a blue-powered sorcerer married a yellow-powered sorcerer, a green-powered baby was born. When a blue-powered sorcerer married a red-powered sorcerer, a purple-powered baby was born. And when a yellow married a red, an orange-powered sorcerer was born. Now, they were considered secondaries and not as powerful. At the end of the first book, they felt they weren't being treated fairly, so a war erupts between the primaries and secondaries. That leads to book 2.
That sounds way interesting. That's awesome.
Yeah. And then through each successive book, Arcadia seems to get stronger and stronger, just through the metamorphosis and all the things that he encounters. So.
Excellent.
I love writing them.
Are you looking at possibly having any movies done or animated features?
I would love to if someone would step forward and help me with it. Absolutely. I would love it. I would love role-playing games. I would love games, cards, deck of cards. I have all these ideas, but I don't have any capital for it.
Right. Well, if I could draw, I'd be right there. I'd help you draw everything, but I can't draw. But
Yeah, unfortunately, it's not.
so that is awesome. That's awesome. Again, folks, for you that are just joining us online live with Mr. George Kramer, he's the author of a series of books from the Arcadis. Phenomenal books. If you're looking at your screen there, you can see we have a Gmail account for Mr. Kramer. You can find his books at Amazon. Looks like Author Seaton. My son typed this up. I am sorry here. Facebook, definitely seeing. You can tweet him at Twitter at gkramer86. Check out his books for sure. These look very, very fascinating, and I can't wait to sit down and start reading them myself. It's my kind of reading for sure. George,
Well, thank you.
when you did some book signings, what was the greatest compliment you ever that you ever got?
Well, this one particular teenage girl came up to me, and I gave her, you know, what the books were about, and she looked at me, she goes, "Can I read the first few pages?" I was like, "Sure." And this is when I only had the 3 books out. I said, "Sure." So she read like 4 or 5 pages, and then she goes to me, "I want this one, I want this one, I want this one." So she took all of them.
Awesome.
So, yeah, I write the books in first person,
Mm-hmm.
and I infuse my oddball sense of humor into it.
That's great. That is great, and that's, you know, a lot of what we need more is more humor, more laughter, instead of looking at the news and being more sad or more depressed. And it sounds like you've capitalized on the laughter part. Excellent. And like I said, all I can tell you folks is every interview that I've seen online, the research that I did behind George, I got to tell you, you really need to think about buying your kids these books or buying them for yourself. For sure, you will definitely be entertained with it. We got numbers. You said book 6 is in the making, or is coming up.
Yeah.
Is there anything you can let us know on that, or is that just going to be kind of kept hush hush?
Oh no, I'd love to tell about it, because I'm really, really having a great time
Good.
writing this.
Awesome.
I am, Kevin. Okay, so Arcadis wants to change reality because of what happened in book 4. I don't want to get into it because I want you to read it.
I do, yes.
So when he does that, before he finishes the enchantment to change reality, he gets zapped, and he never finishes it, and that causes a lot of different things happen that he did not anticipate. Like in one particular scene, clouds start coming over his land, his realm, and his electricity cascading in between the clouds, and all of a sudden beings start falling to the ground, and it's Zeus, it's Odin, it's Hercules, I have Norse gods, Greek gods, and a couple of friends I know are from Finland, so I put a Finnish god in there, and Zeus, Hades, and Poseidon all want to take over Arcadius' realm with the help of Hercules. So I have gods versus gods, with Arcadius and his sorcerers fighting for the control of his realm.
Wow. I'm excited. I tell you, I'm loving every minute of it. These really sound like some excellent read. And I tell you, I'm going to, by all means, purchase your books and start the collection. If not for myself, for my family. I have some friends of mine who have children who they're not, I don't mean to say that they have learning disabilities, but they prefer to be by themselves and read. And that will definitely be donated to them, because I just think that would benefit them tremendously.
Well, I appreciate that.
Oh, yeah, I'd gladly do it for you. What advice, and we kind of talked about this a little bit, I guess what advice would you tell would-be writers not to do?
I would tell writers not to write something because they think it'll sell. I think you should write, they say write what you know, and that's what you start off with.
Okay.
Write what you know. And then when that's out, then if you want to do a book and you need to do research, then that gives you time. Because I knew I wanted, I've never read science fantasy till about a year and a half ago.
Mm-hmm.
And I decided to read it, and then I said, I can do that. And so I didn't know what.
Mm-hmm.
So you write what you know. So I put it in the back of my mind, and in a couple of weeks, I was at my triplet sister's house, and she was painting. And then I went over there, and I said, what are you doing? She goes, well, I have these three primary colors over here, and then when you mix them, they become secondary colors. Bang! Idea went right into my mind.
Yep. That's
So the creative juices started flowing,
mm-hmm.
and I knew what I wanted to write about. I just had to figure out the character's name and what type of personality, and then it flowed.
right.
So it continues to flow.
And a lot of times does that just come natural, like you've already pictured this in your mind, and it's as you're writing, all of a sudden that character develops, and you say, oh, that character's name is Tree Limb or whatever you might want to give that character.
Exactly. And you know what I do, Kevin?
Mm-hmm.
I put insertion points in something I want to put in, and I may or may not use it, but
Mm-hmm.
I may use it that book. I may use it the second book. I have something from the fifth book that I've been teasing that I'm going to use it in the end of the sixth book, and but it was based on an insertion point, I call it. I put something in there on purpose to use later on.
Okay. That makes a lot of sense because you can go back and say, yeah, that did fit, didn't fit. Yeah, take it off and use it somewhere else. So that's a really good point for people who are learning to write, to use those insertion points so that, for me...
Well, not only that, Kevin.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, I'm sorry.
No, go ahead.
Not only with the insertion point, it makes sense in that particular, the way I wrote it, and it makes sense to the storyline. So if I don't use it, it doesn't matter. But if I do use it, they'll say, oh yeah, that's from that book, from there. I was wondering about that. Something like that.
That's excellent. Yeah. Let's see. They say that you have over 100 online articles, number of short stories, publications, including, again, we talked about the collections of your daughters. I really want to point people, because I know that you post a lot of this on your Facebook page. I really kind of want to point people towards you there, George, and make sure that they're checking you out on Facebook for sure. Sounds like a lot of good information. I truly cannot wait to get these series and sit down and read these myself. Is there anything else you want to add? Do you want to let people know about?
I am going to continue with Arcadis till as long as possible, but in book 5, I believe, I introduced a new character, and I want to do a standalone with him. He's called Gruntha, the Magical Bounty Hunter.
Okay.
And it's pretty interesting how he met Arcadis, and I'm going to start writing a series based on that standalone as well. And then I wrote a medical thriller, which I didn't state because I'm in the medical field, and I want to revamp that. But that will be a medical thriller / horror. It will not be for kids. Definitely not for kids. But I love Arcadis so much that as long as people continue to buy it, I will continue to write it. Because it just seems like ideas keep flowing. Like I wrote 8 pages Saturday, which is 2,250 words on Saturday alone. So
that's excellent. Yeah, I get because I do a lot of work that I have to do a lot of research on. I find myself getting totally lost, and it's amazing on how the clocks stop, and it's just it's such a weird sensation because you go, oh my gosh, 18 hours have already passed and I haven't moved. but you
Oh,
get
yeah.
you get so involved with it. George, I think you're doing a phenomenal job. I want to let everybody know that. And again, give out your email address here. It's George Kramer, author at gmail.com. On Amazon, it's amazon.com/author/George Kramer. At authorsden.com/George Kramer. Facebook, go to Facebook. I'll tell you now, if you just search for George, he's going to come right up. And again, at Twitter, at gkramer86. All of this is going to be posted on my website, George. I'm going to put all that contact information on here. I'm also going to put you on my sister's site, which is in Flint, so you're going to get double exposure from us for sure.
Wonderful.
I think it's a fantastic thing that you're doing, and hopefully, if I can ever get a chance, I would love to sit down and do a live one-on-one interview with you. I think that would just be too fun.
I would love it. I would love it, Kevin.
Perfect. Is there anything else you want to finalize there with Mr. Kramer?
If you have a son or daughter that's 11 and older that likes to read, or even if they don't like to read, because I've had friends that don't like science fiction but pick up my book and continue to buy them, I recommend it. And a friend's 85-year-old mom read the book and liked it. So it's across the spectrum.
Excellent. Excellent. Perfect. Well, folks, I appreciate everybody that joined us today. Again, my special guest, Mr. George Kramer, on the Arcadis Series. Phenomenal author. Please check him out. Make sure that you, if you have any questions or comments, you contact George. George, if you would, just stay on the line for a couple of more minutes and have a brief conversation with you.
Okay, Kevin. Thank you.
Thank you.